enemy of progress. I knew you would say otherwise. The bustling streets of Lagos were alive with the vibrancy that characterized Nigeria's largest city. The air was thick with the scent of street food, the agege bread, ewa agoyin, amala and ewedu with shaki, the sounds of honking horns, the screams of the bus drivers and their arguing passengers, the hum of 1,000 conversations. And amidst all this is one man, Davidson. Davidson was a civil engineer, a man of precision and logic. He spent his days solving problems and overseeing construction projects across Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Benue. He had a reputation for being dependable, both in his work and in his personal life. At 32, he was well respected in his field and had built a comfortable life for himself. Just as expected, his friends began to tease him about enrolling into the nearest seminary as a reverend father, a way to remind him of his single status. Davidson often visited his friend Tayo, a lecturer in the Lagos State University. The duo's friendship dates back to their secondary school days. Just 2 weeks after Davidson's parents relocated from Anambra, their state of origin, to Lagos for greener pastures. Davidson was 8 years old and Tayo 10. Egbon, as he fondly called Tayo, what are we doing this weekend? Creative thinking is making me lose my sense of humor and my fun side, David said while he sat on Tayo's well-decorated office couch. I think we should go clubbing, he continued. Let's check out that new club around Sheraton. I heard they are a thing. Or maybe we go pay a girl's bride price. What do you think? Tayo, his ever-joking friend, said in response to that question. David said to Tayo, Tayo Lagunji, it's too early to pester me about marriage. Guy, I will marry. I just haven't seen who to marry. I go marry myself, David said, adjusting his sleeves. Tayo replied, Davidson, the kinds of things I hear from you, they are baffling. So of all the gazillion girls in this Lagos, in Abuja, Port Harcourt and Benue, none have entered your eyes. You are looking for Mother Mary, Abi? You go old though. Guy, women get wahala by default. Just choose one and keep anointing her head with her olive oil to stay in check, Tayo said, laughing to his joke. Davidson was already taken over by the hilarious statement and had joined Tayo in the hollering laughter. This guy, you are never serious, David said, standing up to get the bottle of cashew nut that has been staring at him from the top of the shelf. He threw a few into his mouth while Tayo came to sit with him. Egbo, tell this cashew nut woman to bring me 5 bottles. You won't believe that I don't have even a cube of Maggi in my kitchen. I've been eating out for a whole month now, David said, reading the label on the bottle. Tayo replied him, that is the more reason you should get married quickly. You don't pass all these bachelor things. Look at me, I follow you to talk that kind of thing. David replied, Ha! God, I beg you, deliver me from Tayo's hands, he said, laughing. Egmo, please, when you are done, please accompany me to law faculty. I have unfinished business there, Tayo said to Davidson. As Davidson waited outside a lecture hall for Tayo in the Faculty of Law, Adora walked by, her arms full of books and her mind clearly somewhere else. She didn't notice Davidson at first, but he noticed her. When their eyes finally met, it was as if the noise of the city faded away, leaving only the two of them in that moment. Adora was different from anyone Davidson had ever met. She was younger, in her mid-20s, with an ambition that radiated from her like heat from the sun. She was studying political science at the Lagos State University. She had big dreams of making a difference, not just in Nigeria, but on a global stage. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her sunshade that then signified intelligence and drive that truly captivated Davidson. You know how kids that wore glasses were thought to be more intelligent back then, right? Yes, that was the case. Over the next few months, Davidson found every excuse to visit the university, and each time, he made sure to cross paths with Adora. Their conversation started off light about her studies, the latest political development, and his work, but they quickly grew deeper. Davidson was drawn to her passion, her vision for a better future, and Adora was impressed by his stability and the quiet strength he exuded, and the fact that he hailed from the eastern part of Nigeria like herself. Her parents won't have a problem with an Anambra guy, since her states, Enugu and Anambra, are like the two Igbo brothers. Davidson began courting Adora with the same determination he brought to his work. He admired her independence, but wanted to be part of her journey, to support her in any way he could. Adora, who had always been wary of relationships that might distract her from her goals, found herself falling for Davidson's sincerity and kindness. He wasn't threatened by her ambitions, rather, he was inspired by them. Their relationship blossomed quickly. Davidson was the kind of guy who didn't waste time when he knew what he wanted. And what he wanted was a future with Adora Umoji. Within a year, they were married in a modest but beautiful ceremony attended by close friends and family. Adora's parents, though initially skeptical of Davidson's age and occupation, were won over by his commitment to their daughter's happiness. After their marriage, Adora continued her studies while Davidson supported her every step of the way. But as her graduation approached, they began to discuss the future more seriously. Adora's dreams had always extended beyond the borders of Nigeria and Africa at large. She wanted to influence policy on a global scale, and Davidson knew that to truly support her ambitions, they would need to leave Lagos behind. It was Davidson who first suggested relocating to America. He had heard of opportunities there, and he believed that with Adora's intellect and his own skills as an engineer, they would build a life together in the United States. It wasn't an easy decision, leaving behind everything they knew, their families, their culture, but Davidson was willing to take the risk for Adora's sake. Davidson thought to share his plans with his friend Tayo. That hot afternoon wasn't really felt by Davidson, as he fully wound up the windows of his car and enjoyed the comfort of his AC-fitted Lexus 350. He drove into Tayo's compound as it was a Saturday, and he spent that day with his beautiful wife Jumoke and their three hyperactive kids. Uncle Davidson is here. Lara, the last child of Tayo, screamed while running to hug him first. The other two, Bimbe and Junior, came running to him in similar speed as Lara. Don't push your uncle down. Jumoke, Tayo's wife said in a high tone. Iyawo, the ever-radiant gold by the seashore, the one and only breath of fresh air in Tayo's lungs. How are you today? Davidson asked Jumoke. See, Davidson, you need to inform me of your visit next time, so I can go get an extra head to hold all this eulogy and flattery, because kini happen, Jumoke said laughing. Don't laugh too much, oh. He's just joking with you. Jesus is the only air in my lungs, Tayo said, stepping out of the parlor with a smile on his face. Enemy of progress. I knew you would say otherwise, Jumoke said, pinching Tayo on his back. Whether you like it or not, Tayo Olagunji, I'm the best thing that ever happened to you, Jumoke said, leading the children to excuse the two. Come on, go away. Who told you that? Tayo said, still laughing. Egbon, sit down, oh jare. Don't mind this woman with her bloated ego. Both laughed. Oremi, America, in 1 year? Are you sure? Tayo said, looking very surprised to Davidson. Davidson, with the incessant news of women turning against their husbands once they relocate, I think you should think this through. It's not up to 2 years old. How well do you know her to want to take such risk? Tayo kept going. Egbon, Adora is very different. I can attest to that. She won't behave that way. I can bet on that. The atmosphere became silent, as both friends couldn't really find more words to express their concerns and resolution. After their conversation, Davidson greeted the children goodbye and drove off. Davidson worked tirelessly to make their move a reality. He researched visa requirements, navigated the complex immigration processes, and used his savings to secure their passage to the United States. He reached out to contact and secured a job in America even before they left, ensuring that they would have a stable foundation when they arrived. For Davidson, this was just another step in his lifelong commitment to Adora's happiness. When they finally arrived in America, everything was new and overwhelming. The bustling streets of New York City were a far cry from Lagos. But Davidson and Adora faced the challenge together. Davidson found work as an engineer, quickly adapting to the demands of his new environment, but his focus remained on Adora, ensuring she had everything she needed to succeed. Adora thrived in the new environment as well. She was soon accepted into the prestigious Cambridge University to study political science advanced program. There she excelled, just as she had in Lagos. Davidson worked long hours and sacrificing his own comfort to ensure she could focus entirely on her studies. He cooked, he cleaned, and maintained their home with the same meticulous care he had once given to his construction project. And every day, he reminded himself that all of these were worth it because his Adora was worth it. Adora excelled in her studies, graduating at the top of the class. Davidson was beyond proud, believing that all their sacrifices were finally paying off. Adora soon secured a prestigious position in the US Parliament, a job that not only elevated her status but also secured her residency and that of Davidson. She was on the fast track to success, and Davidson was thrilled to see her thriving. As Adora's career soared, something began to change. She grew distant, treating Davidson with a coldness he couldn't understand. The woman who once cherished their bond now seemed irritated by his very presence. Davidson tried to ignore the signs, chalking it up to the pressure of her new job. But the truth was undeniable. Adora had outgrown him. All this didn't start that day. It all started when he lost his job while she was still studying. He lost his job because of a racial statement he made to a colleague. That threw him off balance and left him with little to no choice than to settle for odd jobs just to provide for his family. Davidson took on 3 jobs, working 4 long hours on each job. One as a security guard, 4 hours as a caregiver to aged people, and another 4 hours as a bartender in a club. All these long hours just to pay for her tuition, pay off her car, and everything else that might be needed to run their house. He did all this with hope that Adora, when finally established, will help him get back to his position. But he was obviously wrong. Her contempt became more overt as time went on. She belittled Davidson for his modest means, mocking his 3 jobs and simple lifestyle. What once felt like love and partnership now felt like a burden. Davidson's effort to please her, cooking, cleaning, supporting her, were met with disdain. She saw him as a relic of her past, a reminder of the life she had left behind. David tried to communicate his feelings, to remind Adora of the love and sacrifices that had brought them this far. But every attempt was met with more disrespect. She dismissed his concerns, telling him he should be grateful for her success, that without her, he wouldn't be a US citizen by now. As if his efforts had nothing to do with her success. Davidson, who had once been her biggest supporter, now felt like a stranger in his own home. Davidson became very scared at this point, remembering all Tayo said to him, and the fact that their house was in her name even scared him the most. But he held on to his love for her, hoping that she would one day see him as her dearest Blackie, as she fondly called him. Despite everything, Davidson continued to fulfill his duties, the cooking and the cleaning, and the financing of the home as much as he could, even though he was struggling. He loved Adora deeply, but he was also human. His tolerance for the emotional abuse had its limits, and he was reaching them very fast. The man who had once been the pillar of their relationship was crumbling under the weight of her contempt. Adora would leave the house and stay weeks on trips that Davidson had no knowledge of. She wouldn't take his calls nor text him. only to show up weeks later with sexy grin on her face that wasn't meant for Davidson. She would shut and shout on him when he asked her whereabouts and threatened to drop him as a dependent so he would be deported. Finally, Davidson could take no more. He filed for divorce, a decision that broke his heart but was necessary for his survival. He was willing to lose it all, to start afresh as Tayo had encouraged him to. Adora, surprised by his decision, hired Lillian, a top-tier divorce lawyer, to ensure she walked away with everything she believed she deserved. Davison, emotionally and financially drained, simply wanted peace.